The 2020 election in Texas was unlike any in recent memory. Democrats thought they had their best shot at loosening the Republican grip on the state for the first time in a very long time. And they came up with very little to show for their efforts. Now, heading into the 2022 election, it's Republicans who are on the offensive, and helped by redistricting, they're trying to cement their majorities at the state legislature and in the congressional delegation, while targeting some very specific parts of the state, including South Texas.
Our next governor of the state of Texas, Beto O'Rourke.
Our next governor again,
Patty RTV.
We're focusing on the biggest race of them all, the governor's race. Democrat Beto O'Rourke announced that he was challenging Republican Governor Greg Abbott for a third term.
Buenos dias, San Antonio. How are we feeling?
O'Rourke is the former El Paso congressman who became a Democratic star in Texas with his 2018 challenge to U.S. Senator Ted Cruz. But a lot has changed since then.
That's time, sir.
O'Rourke ran for president in 2020 in a crowded Democratic primary, and in the process, he took some positions that could be difficult to defend in Texas. Also, he's no longer unknown statewide. A lot of Texans know him, and polls show that his favorability rating remains stubbornly upside down. Also, the national environment is no longer working in his favor, with the Democratic President Joe Biden in the White House, who remains very unpopular in Texas.
I'm going to guarantee you this is not last year's seat of this guy.
But things have also changed for Abbott since he was last on the ballot in 2018. His once sky-high approval ratings have come down as he's navigated the coronavirus pandemic and 4 legislative sessions this year in which he guided the state more firmly to the right. Then there is the deadly electrical grid failure that left millions of Texans without power last winter. That is O'Rourke's #1 issue.
Here we are in the energy capital of North America, and we can't even guarantee that the lights will work or the heat will run or that our pipes won't freeze.
Abbott has held firm that state lawmakers have done all they needed to do to prevent another grid failure like the one that happened last winter.
I'm extremely confident that the power grid is stable and resilient and reliable.
Can you give a guarantee that the lights are going to stay on?
I can guarantee the lights will stay on.
O'Rourke is hammering Abbott right out of the gate, something he didn't do against the incumbent that he was running against in 2018, Ted Cruz. In addition to criticizing the governor over the power grid failure, O'Rourke is criticizing Abbott for backing the state's new laws that almost totally ban abortion and also allow permitless carry of handguns.
I trust women to make their own decisions about their own body.
What I've also heard from people in San Antonio is that they are deeply disappointed in Governor Abbott for ignoring the advice of law enforcement, who begged the governor not to sign a permitless carry bill into law.
Abbott, who has at least 3 challengers in his Republican primary for re-election, is not shying away from those new laws, even as polls show that they are unpopular with the broader electorate.
We also safeguarded your Second Amendment rights. We passed a law making sure that Texas is a constitutional carry state and that Texas is a Second Amendment sanctuary state to prevent Joe Biden and Beto O'Rourke from coming in and taking your guns. Without life, all these other rights do not matter. And it's the right to life, which is exactly why I signed that law to ensure that any baby with a heartbeat will be saved from the ravages of abortion in Texas.
Meanwhile, O'Rourke is having to grapple with some of the things he said in his presidential campaign that are already at the center of Abbott's attacks against him. At the top of the list for Abbott is O'Rourke's support in 2020 for a mandatory buyback program for assault weapons.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
We asked O'Rourke when he launched his latest campaign if he was backing away from that proposal.
Are you backing away at all from that proposal in this campaign, mandatory buyback for assault weapons?
I am not.
Okay.
Again, I think that most Texans can agree, maybe all Texans can agree, that we should not see our friends, our family members, our neighbors shot up with weapons that were originally designed for use on a battle.
Even before O'Rourke announced his candidacy against Abbott, the governor's campaign was releasing videos reminding voters of some of the things that O'Rourke has said since his 2018 campaign. Among them is a comment from 2020 where O'Rourke expressed support for racial justice protesters who were pushing at the time for what they called defunding the police. It's a term that can mean different things to different peoples, but it became a Republican rallying cry in that election.
I really love that Black Lives Matters and other protesters have put this front and center to defund, these line items that have over-militarized our police, and instead invest that money in the human capital of your community. And then also in some necessary cases, completely dismantling those police forces and rebuilding them.
We asked O'Rourke if he still believed that, and he distanced himself from those comments.
So I don't think I've ever advocated for defunding the police, to be clear on that. But I do think we need to make sure that we give police, sheriff's departments, and law enforcement the resources they need to focus on their most important priorities, which are to prevent and solve violent crime. My thinking is that if we provide the resources necessary for law enforcement to focus on that, and then take off their plate things that don't have to be resolved by law enforcement. So issues where it's more of a mental health care challenge or incident that could be addressed with a social worker or someone who's not in law enforcement. I think that's a great use of the resources that we already have in our community. I think it frees up law enforcement to focus on what they do best. And I think it makes sure that we fund them fully for what they really need.
I think his Senate campaign was really hitting all the right notes. I think his presidential campaign maybe hit some not so quite right notes for Texas. So I think he's got a little bit of work to do as far as messaging for guns in particular, but I think absolutely he can do that. He's an incredible communicator.
I think this campaign is going to be a lot better than 2018. I think there's a lot of issues that the current governor of Texas is not addressing, whether it be the power grid, the marijuana issue, the gun control. There's a lot of issues that need to happen. We're all Texans, and I think we're all proud to be Texans, and I think Beto's the guy that's going to bring us all together.
A key region to watch for the governor's race next year, and in many other elections in Texas, will be South Texas. That includes the four-county southernmost region known as the Rio Grande Valley. The region has traditionally been a Democratic stronghold, but Republicans are determined to make new inroads there in 2022 after Biden underperformed there in the 2020 election. O'Rourke began his campaign by traveling south, and he said it was no mistake.
If the great sin committed by Republicans historically has been to disenfranchise voters, including those in the Rio Grande Valley, then that committed by Democrats has been to take those same voters for granted.
Abbott is also expected to prioritize South Texas after focusing on the Hispanic vote in his previous campaigns.
There has been no governor in Texas history who's come to the RGV more than I have, and I will keep coming to the RGV. Every year that I have run for governor, I've got about 45% of the Hispanic vote. With your help this election year, I will get more than 50% of the Hispanic vote in the state of Texas.
I think that the Valley has been turning more red and red as I've seen, and I have been getting very optimistic, and I think Governor Abbott has played a huge role in that, and I think it's just great news for America and Texas.
Abbott and O'Rourke are campaigning on a broad set of issues in South Texas, but the one that looms the largest is the border. Securing the border is arguably Abbott's #1 issue for his re-election campaign, and O'Rourke is showing some daylight with fellow Democrats on the issue.
It's clear that President Biden could be doing a better job at the border. It is not enough of a priority for his administration.
O'Rourke no doubt faces an uphill battle, but he's committed to campaigning just like he did in 2018 in Texas, going to all 254 counties. And by Christmas, he had already hit dozens of them.
And I want to tell you this. I promise you, I will give this campaign, in this race, in this effort, every ounce of my being.
Abbott is expected to ramp up his campaigning after the holidays, particularly in South Texas.
We are going to save America by winning Texas, by starting right here in the Rio Grande Valley and working every day for the next year to make sure that we keep Texas red and keep Texas the best state in the greatest country in the history of the world. God bless you all, and God bless the great state of Texas.